So contrast is just that. It's the difference between the brightest parts and the darkest parts of the image. So an example of high contrast would be on the left here. We're staring pretty much directly at the sun, which is about as bright as you can get. And we have this dark silhouette of our guy here. And this is using up pretty much the full range of brightnesses that we can have in an image, from all the way bright white in the sun to down here pretty much close to black for the shadows. Same thing here on this side. Pretty much all of the shadows are crushed out here into black. And we have a lot of the kind of grayish skin tones here. And then there's also some bright white kind of blown out highlights. So this is, again, just maximized contrast. And generally, the higher contrast you have, the more interesting something is. It doesn't mean you should always pump up your contrast, but things usually look better when they take up that full range of light to dark. On the other side of things, we have low contrast. It's actually kind of hard to find low contrast examples of nice photography because people generally don't like low contrast because it just doesn't look as good. So here, the difference between the brightest parts and the darkest parts is a lot less. We have some highlights here in kind of the bokeh of the grass, but about as dark as it gets is probably right up here in this corner, which is only 30 or 40% brightness. Everything is pretty much at gray or above. So because there is less of that dynamic range being taken up, this is called low contrast. And we have an interesting example over here where we actually have quite a bit of low contrast stuff all around in the blankets and everything. But then we have a really high contrast plate here in the middle. And this is actually really good to illustrate a point about contrast is because contrast is more interesting, you generally want your subject to contrast with the rest of your shot. So this coffee has this black ring here. We have the high contrast of the white plate and the dark leaves. This is obviously the subject of the shot. Whereas in this shot, everything is so low contrast, it's kind of hard to figure out what we're really supposed to look at. I would say maybe this plant here just because it's in focus. And even though the contrast isn't huge in the picture as a whole, this is probably the highest contrast piece of the picture. Here, it's really easy to find our subject. It's obviously this guy, and obviously her face and skin right here. And so that is the basics of contrast. It's the difference between the brightest parts and the darkest parts in an image.